In this episode of the Locked On NBA Big Board podcast, it is the last and final region of this prospect breakdown for the 2024 NBA draft. Prospects that are playing in the NCAA tournament. It is the South, and this region has big names, but it's light on sleepers. So stay tuned to hear James's thoughts on some of the top prospects in the South. Big shout out to each and every person that has made the Locked On NBA Big Board podcast your first listen of the day. I'm your host, Rafael Barlowe, the director of scouting for NBA Big Board, and my co-host, James Barlowe, the VP of NBA Big Board. It's not an official title yet, but we got to come up with something because James and I have some big things. We have some big things planned coming up over the next few weeks. We're going to do a lot of draft content with guys in the middle of their pre-draft process. So we'll be going out to different locations, visiting prospects and sitting down, talking with them. So stay tuned for that because draft season is like right around the corner. Soon as the Final Four wraps up, it is all about the NBA draft. So I'm looking forward to that. If you're not subscribed to the YouTube channel, please subscribe, like, share, comment. Be sure to click the bell so you can be notified of all this really good content that we have coming out during the time between the college season is over and up until the day of the NBA draft. And even on the NBA draft, we will be live at the Barclays. But before I get started, I want to let you know that this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. And right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That is $200 if your bet wins. So visit fanduel.com/locked on to get started. We are recording this on a Tuesday, and that's because James and I are headed to Dubai for the Adidas Next Generation tournament. We are already thinking years in advance, 2025, 2026 international draft, because international players, I mean, that's the wave right now. I mean, there's a chance that 3 or 4 international guys could be lottery picks in the 2024 draft. So we're just trying to get ahead on some of the guys that will be in future drafts. And I've never been to Dubai. James hasn't either. It should be fun. And the Adidas Next Generation tournaments are always fun for me. I haven't been in a couple of years, so I'm looking forward to this. All right, but let's talk about the 2024 NBA draft prospects that are playing in the South region. This region is loaded with potential first-round picks, but is very light on sleepers, guys that could basically break out and make a name for themselves. So I have a couple, I wouldn't even call them sleepers. I mean, they're playing in big conferences, but I think that they could probably, make a name for themselves on the big stage. Let's talk about a guy that is a interesting prospect. He's on the number 1 seed, Houston. He's a player that I think could be like the next Javon Carter in a sense, just a bulldog defender that I think there is a role for him in the NBA. I had him in my top 50 prospects on NBA Big Board 3.0 that came out last week, and Jamal Shead. So I'm just going to ask you straight up, James, do you like Jamal Shead? Is he someone that you would draft, or would you think more so like upside and try to get him on a 2-way?
Man, if he could shoot, I'd draft him. I just don't know if he can shoot the ball well enough to be draftable. He does a lot of good things. I think defensively is where he's gonna, like you said, the Javon Carter comparison. He's definitely gonna make his calling card there, but like he's like a sub 30% 3-point shooter for his career. And I ultimately I don't like whether you 6'1" or 6'7", I don't care how good of a defender you are, man. If you are we don't have to guard you on the other end, it's going to be tough. And he's not like he's a point guard, but he's not like the floor general TJ McConnell type either. So it's like, I want to see him be able to knock down jump shots. Now, it's going to be tough. Houston's going to be tough. I got them in the championship game against UConn. Oh, that's not going out on any kind of limbs because those 2 number 1 seeds, but he can definitely play. I just wish that he shot the ball a little bit better.
Yeah, and the Javon Carter comparison is, even then, that's a little bit off because Carter shot 39% and
Yes.
39% his last 2 years in college. And he was a poor shooter his first 2 years, below 30% or hovering around the 30% mark. Shead just hasn't made those improvements over the years, but he's a good foul shooter. So maybe there's some hope
And
that he could improve as a shooter.
I'd have to dig into his catch and shoot numbers. I know he takes a lot of tough threes off the dribble too, so maybe that's kind of hurting his 3-point shooting splits. But I mean, if you look at like I don't know if we want to call him Deuce or Miles. Miles McBride. Deuce Miles McBride. He shot 40% from three his sophomore year. And he's kind of is the latest in line of that 3-and-D point guard. I think he was lighting Golden State up last night too. So, but like he is sticking and he's playing because he's making shots. I mean, it's hard to crack a Tibbs rotation when you're young anyway. But like his defense got him drafted, but like his shooting really like solidified it for him.
Yep. All right. Let's talk about another guy that I wouldn't call him a sleeper. He doesn't have a lot of NBA draft buzz, but he's a hooper. Like no matter who you put up against him, he puts some numbers. He's small, but Wade Taylor.
Hey man, look, that Wade Taylor, this is name is it Kelsey Tamanaga. That matchup is gonna be them dudes right there are gonna be shooting a lot of threes off the dribble. Like that's gonna look like the when my man Kylie Watson played the white dude that was trying to take his scholarship and above the rim, how they just kind of went back and forth. Like that's what that's gonna look like to me, man. Like Wade Taylor, yeah, he's small, but like
He hoops.
bucket. He's
He
a hooper,
he
yeah.
he hoops. Just I watched him over the years because he's a Dallas area kid, and he's just always like exceeded whatever the expectations. There are people saying he was too small. I remember watching him at this Wooten camp a couple years ago, and he was there with like Nick Smith, Jalen Tyson played in the camp, and he was just one of the better players, but he wasn't as heralded as some of the guys that were there. But Wade Taylor just, I mean, he's a guy that's not afraid of the moment, comes up big in big games. So I wonder, can he do anything to like boost his draft stock or at least get in the conversation? It's just because he's so small that is being held against him. All right, let's talk about the guys at Duke. Duke is, I mean, they have quite a few prospects that I think, are draftable this year. But I talked about it on a previous episode. I don't know if it was with Richard or Leaf. I've done so many of these this week. But anyway, I talked about the Duke guys and how I think there might be some pressure to perform individually to get out of town because this recruiting class that they have next year is
I think
loaded.
you got, hold on. Why do you feel like there's pressure?
Well, because the class they got next year, I think they got like 5 of the top 37 prospects. So, like,
I
for
get,
example,
go
Mark
ahead.
Mitchell. If you're Mark Mitchell, I mean, do you come
I,
back to school?
I don't think there's any pressure. I think you got your bags packed already.
Well,
I feel like
I guess
everybody's
pressure,
gone. I mean, you have to go.
pressure in the sense of, can I get drafted or do I got to hit this portal?
Man, look. Either way, look, what are the kids doing? I'm entering the portal and I'm testing the waters. That's the whole
Oh
Duke
no,
roster
you
next
got to
year.
add the whole script of I thank God after
Oh yeah,
consulting with
yeah.
God in my family, we have decided it's like everybody has this script.
They use that same AI, man. After several days of thought and prayer, I'm gonna enter and then I don't know, man. Shout out to the kids. But nah, I don't feel like there's any pressure. Like, yo, what are you you're not coming back to school, man. Like what did Cal tell our man CDR? Like, nah, man, y'all gotta go, man. Like, peace out. I got a whole new class coming in, man. I'm not a believer in this Duke team at the college level. I don't really think that they're gonna be very good in the tournament. But like all those guys are gone, man. Where you gonna play at?
Well, I think that Filipowski, I think it makes most sense for him to leave. I think Jared McCain, I think if he plays well, there's enough buzz for him to
I think
leave
you
and be
have
it.
to. I think Jared McCain could go in the 20s depending on how much you like him. And again, we said the 20s and the 40s aren't any different. Like he can still get a guaranteed deal as a second round pick if that's where he falls. But like he shot the ball. I think he has enough good film to be like, man, I'm out.
Yeah.
especially in a wide open draft. Tyrese Proctor was coming back to school another year to do the exact same thing you did your freshman and sophomore year. Like you're not going to improve your stock. Why hang around?
I mean,
I
you can improve your stock. I mean, we've seen Kevin McCullough and Terrence Shannon pretty much possibly get first round grades after year
yeah,
5.
yeah, but those are okay. They had something to prove as like, okay, McCullough had to prove that he could shoot, right?
Yeah.
Terrence Shannon, I don't even know why he's always back and forth between school,
I
but
guess he
like,
just chose to develop in college instead of the G League. He's like, hey man, do I want to play in front of 15,000 or do I want to play in front of 600? So I might as well.
I guess I get that, but I just don't feel like I don't see what more can Tyrese Proctor do. I mean, next year you have to pass the ball to the young boys. So
Yeah.
it's like, what are you doing?
Show you
You're not going to be a
I guess
full-time point guard.
I guess you got some athletes, so you got lobs. You can throw. I don't know. I'm just saying, like I do think that he has a decision to make. More than likely, I think he leans towards staying in the draft, but I don't think he's had the season to where you can say he's a lock to be your first round pick, or even a lock to get drafted. As crazy as that sounds, because there's
I
such a wide pool of players that I think between prospects 15 through 60, and then you got to factor in there's like 2 less picks this year, so it's
Okay, so
tough.
why not just enter the portal if that's the case? If like you sit here and say, man, I gotta prove that I'm that guy, and I mean, you'll say, oh, okay, we playing with these young boys. That's fine. But like if you want to say I'm going back to school to get better because I'm not gonna get drafted, or you don't like your draft stock and you want to improve your draft stock, go to another power five that's not Duke, that's gonna hand you the keys, and then you can try to figure it out from there. Who did that this year? Uh I
I just
mean,
don't
then
want
I
him to be
just
like Trevor Kills. I wasn't a big Trevor Kills guy. He left. He got out with Paulo in that class, and he has been in the G League ever
it's gonna
since.
happen. It's gonna
Yeah,
happen though. I
yeah,
mean, you just don't have any control. Like, if you're gonna get drafted and then spend time in the G League, like you said, the 10th pick in this year's draft could do that. Whether
yep,
you 10th or 35th, I mean, there's just not a lot of jobs.
yep. All right, let's just talk about some of the players. Who on this Duke team do you think could improve their draft stock the most with a deep tournament run or some strong performances?
For me, the my favorite player on that Duke team would probably be Jared McCain. I don't. There's not really much Kyle Filipowski can do for me. I'm not really the biggest Kyle Filipowski fan. I think he kind of is just a good. He's a very good college basketball player. Like that's not what this is about. But from what as a pro, I don't see lottery pick. I think he gets drafted. I have him in the 20s. I just think he's good. You know what I'm saying? Like he's not a somebody. I don't think they're gonna be like, oh, well, I mean, it could happen because you can trick somebody. But I don't think there's anything that he's going to do that's gonna sit here and say, oh man, that's a lottery pick, right?
I do. I'm not the
Unless
big
he goes through and
Filipowski
shoots.
guy, but I think if he shoots lights out from three, I think
That's
because
it.
yeah, I mean if he shoots lights out from three, shows the passing and whatever. But I do think that if he has a really strong tournament, they make a deep tournament run. He's knocking down threes. The buzz around him is going to be so high that somebody may take him in the lottery, in the back end of the lottery, because they see the versatility. I mean, we've seen it
I
happen.
get that.
So, and then
Yeah,
McCain, I think McCain really has to shoot the ball well. I think he's done enough to where he can get drafted, but I think in order for him to boost his stock, he's got to really shoot the ball well. I think the guy that probably has the most pressure in a sense is Caleb Foster. I think he needs a strong tournament to determine, all right, do I enter the draft and am I going to be in a good situation, or do I
portal.
look at the portal, or do I just say, you know what, I'm not running from the grind. I'm going to figure things out, which leads to the next set of players that I want to talk about in the second segment. Kentucky is in this same bracket, and Rob
Same
Dillingham,
situation, really.
but in Rob Dillingham's case, we've given him credit for not running from the grind. He
Yeah.
knew that, The odds were kind of stacked against him. I guess you could say the same for Reed Sheppard, but stacked against him to like get loose. He stayed,
Yeah.
had confidence in himself, and now I think he's going to be a top 10 pick. So when we return, we're going to talk about the Kentucky prospects and how this NCAA tournament can help boost their draft stock. Are you the kind of driver that likes to push things a little further? Do you ever wonder what adventure could be around the next corner? Well, our friends at Nissan have a lineup of SUVs with the capabilities to take your adventure to the next level. First, let's talk about the 2024 Nissan Rogue. It is perfect for city drives and great escapes. You have class executive Google built in, which is always your updated assistant to call for almost anything. Gone are the days of connecting your phone with the Google Assistant, Google Maps, and Google Play Store. Built right in the 12.3-inch HD touchscreen infotainment system. The 2024 Rogue is the perfect mid-size crossover for your next adventure. And then there is the Nissan Pathfinder. It has room up to 8, an expansive cargo capacity, and advanced available 4x4 capability. It also has 284 horsepower and up to 6,000 pounds of towing. It can tow up to 6,000 pounds. So when adventure calls, the Pathfinder is there to answer. So take the Nissan Rogue, Nissan Pathfinder, or even the Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com. All right, let's talk about FanDuel because FanDuel is our sponsor for today. And you can say goodbye to busted brackets because FanDuel lets you bet on every game of the tourney. Whether you are betting on a big upset or a one seed, it is time to go dancing on America's #1 sportsbook. And right now, new customers get a $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. I'm going to read that again. That's $200 to use on point spreads, money lines. You can even pick who's going to win it all. So just visit fanduel.com/lockedon and bet on college hoops until they cut down the nets. All right, second segment, we talked about the Duke guys and who needs a strong NCAA tournament to basically get in the draft to avoid the transfer portal. Let's talk about Kentucky. Kentucky has a first-round matchup against Oakland. Shout out to Kay Felder and the Oakland alums, Keith Benson. And Kentucky is loaded with NBA talent. I think you talk about a team that's going to have a bunch of guys get NBA experience. I think with this Kentucky team, I think there's going to be at least 6 guys that get some type of experience in the NBA at some point. I mean, you figure Wagner.
It might be 7.
Yeah, it might be 7. I like Ugana Oyensu. I like him as a energy guy. Let's talk about Rob Dillingham. So we talked about the Duke situation and Caleb Foster. Dillingham coming into the season, actually not even, coming into the season, especially after the tournament they played in Canada this summer, the Global Jam, it looked like the odds were stacked against him to have a major role. He's defied the odds. I think he's going to be a top 10 pick. You can say the same for Reed Sheppard. They are two of the best
different
guards.
set of odds, though.
I mean, they had a different set of odds, but they didn't come into the season as the dude. Like, everyone assumed that Cal was going to let DJ Wagner get loose. And then when Antonio Reeves decided to come back, then you figured those two are going to be the starting backcourt. And in this rare situation, you have 2 guards that don't start are going to be lottery picks.
2 guards that don't start are going to be lottery picks.
That's crazy.
Never.
So I've been talking to like different people from teams, and I just kind of tease them to ask them, Dilly or Reed, who do you like better? And it's like split. I mean, there are teams that really like Reed Sheppard. As far as number 1, I haven't heard anybody say they would take him number 1, but there are teams that just really like him. And then there's teams that love Dillingham and the shot making. So I wanted to ask you, I mean, I think both of those guys are solidified as lottery picks. I think they're good. I think the body of work is better. But Justin Edwards and DJ Wagner, what type of tournament do they need to get into the first round? Do you think it's possible?
All right, so you know me, I'm blunt, Ralph. I think DJ is I think another year of school would be
And there's
good for
nothing
him.
wrong with that.
And there's absolutely nothing wrong with him. And he may not even have to hit the portal because he's DJ Wagner. He's got the pedigree, the relationship with Cal. Do they have any guards next year? I swear they brought in some bigs.
Yeah, I mean, they're always gonna have.
That's true. Yeah, that's Kentucky. But
Yep.
I feel like Justin Edwards is prime opportunity for him to atone for months of just running around. Now, he's put it together at the I guess the back half of conference play. It
Yep.
was powered by that monster, what's it,
10 for 10
100%?
game.
Yeah, that 10
Yeah.
for 10 game definitely boosted his numbers, but it also boosted his confidence. Like, let's be
Yep.
real.
Yep.
So again, we talked about it earlier, Ralph. I'm not the biggest Justin Edwards fan. I'm not going to hold that against you anymore that you had him number one. But if you told me the 6'8" left-handed dude was knocking down catch and shoot shots, could knock down a one dribble pull up, and was a good cutter, and he shot the ball from three at 36%, that sounds like a first round pick to me.
Yep.
So I feel like he has the opportunity just to do those things. And I thought maybe it was the expectations. I don't know, man. Maybe he saw those mocks and man, that was just too much of a, strain on him mentally because whatever. But now that we really know who he is, I feel like he has an opportunity. I still got him in the 50s. I had him in like the 70s before because he just wasn't playing well. But now that he's playing better, I think he has an opportunity to, I don't want to say trick somebody, but he can definitely like
Regain some of the
regain,
yeah.
yeah, some of the buzz. And I think this is a really, really good opportunity. And I hope that he does seize that opportunity, not just for him, just for everybody who's in this draft, because it's like it's a long story, not just a short story. Like,
Yeah. Yeah,
where
I
you
think
are in November is not, it doesn't even matter where you are in November because nobody's getting drafted in November. So
yeah. But I will say I think there's guys that that because they didn't get drafted in November, they lost a lot of money. If the
oh
draft
yeah,
was
yeah, yeah,
in
for sure.
November,
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah,
think
yeah.
Justin Edwards
Oh yeah, yeah,
is
yeah,
is
yeah,
is,
yeah, yeah.
is
He gotta,
high.
he gotta,
So
he gotta put the phantom keys away.
yeah,
Yeah.
but I think that the draft or this tournament can be big for Ivisic. I still, regardless of whether or not Kyle plays him a lot, if I'm an NBA team, I'm going to use a first round pick on a 7-2 guy that moves like that can shoot. I think he just had, I mean, some stuff that just worked against him. He couldn't
Yeah.
play in the beginning. Then you get inserted into, playing right when everybody is in like everybody's playing. Like the thing about basketball, which I didn't realize it until I really got around the game, is no matter how much you practice, how much you play fives, how much you run around the track or work out, you are
That's not
not going to
hooping.
be in game shape. You can't simulate live game action. So I
Nah,
think,
because there's nobody leaning on you.
but even if you practice, I still think you can't simulate like live game, the intensity of playing, in front of tens of thousands of people in the bright light. So I think some of the reason why Kyle was kind of playing with his minutes is that he wasn't in like the best game shape. And then I know he missed some time with an illness on top of not being able to play. But I'm a big fan of his talent, the passing, the 7-2 can move. I would take him in the first round. I think a big tournament could help him out. And then there's Aaron Bradshaw, who I thought was
Portal.
the top 10
I
pick
did
coming into the
too.
season. I knew the foot injury was going to slow him down. And just between the combination of the foot injury and then Ivisic coming in, and then they bringing in Trey Mitchell, who's like a fifth year guy. Not all those guys can play. He's shown some flashes. I think he needs a big tournament. If not, I can see a situation, and I'm just speculating here, but I can see a situation where he leaves Kentucky. He's a clutch guy. Goes to USC with Bronny if Bronny returns to school.
Brian not going back to school, man.
So
Bet you Bronny ain't in class right now. She would have bet Bronny ain't in class right now.
Yeah, if you go to USC, if you're a student at USC, if you got a
Yeah,
picture of Bronny walking on campus this week, Send it to us. So anyway, I do think if Bronny goes back to school, I do see a situation where it makes sense for Clutch to say, "Hey, look, both Clutch guys, you guys didn't, because of injuries or illness or whatever, you had some odds stacked against you. Go to USC, play together, build your draft buzz together out in LA." That's just a scenario that I'm just guessing could happen. But
I,
anyway, Justin
yeah, yeah.
Edwards and Aaron Bradshaw and DJ Wagner need huge NCAA tournaments just to sneak in the first round.
I got another scenario. DJ Wagner and Aaron Bradshaw are the first, well, not the first, but they are, high school teammates, AAU teammates. They go back to Kentucky next year. Or maybe they're a package deal in the portal. I don't know. I can't think I get Duke's class and Kentucky's class mixed up for next year.
Yeah,
But
I can't imagine like two guys like leaving Kentucky together. Like where do you go?
where
Like
wouldn't you go?
I mean, I just imagine like once you get to Kentucky and you're playing and you're starting those bright lights, and
Man,
then I don't know, I
nah,
can't.
bro.
I
You gotta think long term, man. You gotta think past the bright lights and the blue grass. Like we trying to get drafted next year, man. We need the best opportunity for us to rock, right?
Yep.
So again, I'm a big fan of the Power Fives that aren't blue bloods.
Yep.
You feel me? Like you go to shoot. I mean, Louisville's you can't go for
They don't
Kentucky,
have a
but
coach right now.
they don't have a coach, but you just can't do that because you get jumped for that. Like that's crazy. But like imagine they go not Rutgers because Rutgers has a good class next year, but they're from New Jersey. Let's say they go to Seton Hall next year, right? And they go play
Yeah.
for Shaheen, right?
Who
So
missed
y'all
the
back
tournament?
home.
Yep.
Yeah, so y'all back home. Y'all are automatically like the biggest draws that they have in or the biggest names that they have in the portal. Like you can go there, be a package deal, restore the old Big East feeling, right? Like it works. I mean,
You're leaving
Kentucky
out
is
a key
great.
factor though. In this day and age, NIL is a huge factor. And do they want to go backwards to go forward? All right, we'll talk about that in the
Go
next
backwards
segment.
to go forward to go forward.
Right. All right. All right. When we return, we're going to talk about the prospects for Marquette in Florida to wrap up this last segment in this series on the top NBA prospects in the regions. All right. I have a question for the listener. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN all day long and you have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Well, make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24 hours a day, 7 days a week streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, options, and news, streaming 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on YouTube for free at Amazon Fire TV channels app. And it is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, last segment. Let's talk about Marquette. Marquette has three guys that I think can be drafted this year: Tyler Kolek, Oso Ighodaro, and Cam Jones. Cam Jones didn't make the Big East All Tournament team, and I guess they asked him about it, and he gave a not safe for work reply to the voters. But I think there is a possibility that Marquette could have three guys drafted. I like Tyler Kolek. I know he's not 100%, but from everything that I've read, he is going to play. They sat him out the Big East tournament. Speaking of big picture, they're like, hey, we're good as far as this
Yeah,
NCAA
man.
tournament. No need to play in the Big East tournament. Get your rest, heal up. I like Kolek, the Big East Player of the Year last year. I thought he would have won it or had a chance to win it again this year, but that went to Devin Carter. And then also Ighodaro, a guy that I had as a first rounder in last year's draft. I had him as a first rounder at the start of this year. And then even though it's been like a weaker draft in a sense, and he's been good, right now he's kind of slipped out of my top 30. He's in my top 35 or 40. Do you think that there's a chance that he could increase or boost his draft stock with play, and even with Kolek?
I think I know a lot of guys are high on Kolek. I don't necessarily think that their stock is going to, or Ogudoro's stock, I think his stock can improve because you'll see like a team will see the rebounding if he rebounds and passing and like his ability, like that stuff will like definitely pop, right? I think Tyler Kolek is who he is and he's good. Like if you like him, you really like him.
But I
You know
can
what
say
I'm
the same
saying?
about Oso. I'm like, what's he gonna do? Shoot a jumper outside the paint? Like,
That's true.
I
I
think,
mean, it just might depend on the matchups. I have to look and see who they may, run into on their way to the Final Four. But like, I don't know, man. Those guys are just kind of who they are to me.
yeah, I mean, there's a
I don't
lot
know if
of
there's a
film
matchup
on
that's
them.
going to. Yeah, yeah.
Just a lot of film on them. I think they do what they do. It's just weird because, like, I think with Kolek, I like him a lot. I mean, I think he's a first round pick. I think that he just has the intangibles. He can shoot the ball, lights out shooter. I think, some teams may say, oh, well, he doesn't have the ideal physical tools and so on, but just intangibles. He gets to the basket, uses his body, good passer, can shoot. I think he's going to be a solid NBA player. But Iguodaro, man, I really like him as a passer. I just am a little disappointed that he just didn't add anything to his game this year. I mean, the touch around the basket with the floater push shot is incredible, but it's like a dog has an invisible fence, and it's like for him, once he gets outside of that paint, the range just absolutely disappears. And I just can't see a situation where all of a sudden he just is knocking down short corner jumpers or
Right. And see, here's the thing, like because he didn't really add anything to his game, you got guys like Johnny Room from Auburn who might take work off his block. Like, because look, he came back shooting threes. You know what I'm saying? He can pass, he blocks shots, he rebounds. Like, I mean, he came back he can rise because he got better, and it's like filming him last year looks different, whereas Oso's just kind of looks the same.
Yep. All right, let's talk about Zion Pullum. I like him a lot. I think he could be a riser, good size at a point guard, 6'4". He averaged 15 points per game, 5 assists, 4 rebounds, shot a respectable 44% from the field, but also shot 44% from three. He is not getting a lot of buzz. Like, even though he shot 44% from three, 39% last year, it wasn't on like a crazy volume of attempts, just two per game, but he can shoot. When he does shoot it, he is efficient, but he's a really good foul shooter. I think that he could really boost his draft stock, even though he's a little older. This is year 5 for him. Teams in the first round are usually going to take upside over someone that is ready to come in and contribute right away. But I think he's one of the better guards in the country in this tournament, and I think that he could really boost his draft stock this in this tournament with his play. What are your thoughts on Zion Pullum?
He can play. I just have issues like the Florida could lose in the first round. And you still got to think that it's not just him. Like he's played well, but Will Clayton Jr.,
Yep.
yes, like they have other guys too. Like I think he would boost his stock if they were able to make a run. But ultimately, like they have that Colorado Boise State winner, right?
Yep.
And they could lose that game. So
Yeah.
it's like
I mean, but
I
it's the tournament. Everybody can lose. I mean, maybe if you're like Kentucky, you probably don't think you'll lose to Oakland, or Marquette probably won't lose to Western Kentucky. Houston won't
no.
lose to Longwood. But that's the beauty of the tournament. Like,
That's
we
true.
talk about guys having are trying to boost their draft stock and the opportunity to do it, but you may have one bad game and it's draft prep time.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
that's the beauty of the NCAA tournament.
Can AJ just real quick, yes or no, maybe so. AJ Stores from Wisconsin and maybe for 2025, Darion Williams from Tech.
Yeah,
Boost
those are
their
guys
stock,
that
create stock.
yeah, those are two players that a big tournament helps them out, even if it's for next year. Like, a strong tournament could help them get invited to the NBA Combine if they want to test. If you get invited to the Combine, that's a big deal. And then if they just test the waters, I think it could help them create some buzz for 2025 and enter the season as, potential preseason All-American. So, I mean, those are two guys that I believe a strong NCAA tournament will really be big for their draft stock.
I think Darion Williams is going to have that opportunity because Texas Tech is really, really good and they like built for the tournament. Like if they run off 3 games, which I think they can. I have them going pretty far. He plays well. Like I wouldn't be surprised because he can really shoot. I know he had built a little buzz because he had like a 30-point game on like 10. These dudes shooting 10 for 10 from the field is crazy.
Yeah.
But he had a 10 for 10 shooting game. So I think Tech is going to be a good team, a team to look out for, and he could play himself into buzz possibly for next year. I mean, I don't know how good he'll do this year, but who knows?
Yeah. I mean, the key is if you create enough buzz where you get invited to the combine, and then you're in the door at that point. Your foot is in the door, and then once your foot is in the door, it's up to you to kick that thing down. Well, that wraps up this episode of the Locked On NBA Big Board Podcast. That wraps up this series. Once again, it's Rafael Barlowe and my brother James. We will be reporting to you live in Dubai the next time you see us or hear us. So once again, thank you for making the Locked On NBA Big Board Podcast your first listen of the day, and we are out of here.